Hi everyone, and welcome to the All Things ITSM Global Podcast, coming to you from SITS in London. I'm Kirsty McGowan, and I'm here with Simone Jo Moore.
Hello.
And James Finister.
Hello.
And we have the pleasure of talking to Rosh Hosany this afternoon. Thank you for joining us.
No problem. Well, I think you've had quite an exciting SITS. First of all, you and I were on the Women in IT Championing Equality panel, and also you've had Bright Talk this morning with another one of our panelists, Leonie, as well.
Yeah.
So what's been the response that you've come across and the conversations you've had about that SITS?
Yeah, I mean, I think firstly the whole Women in IT initiative has been a really great awareness campaign to tag on to SITS this year. And I think it's about time that we started to commercially recognise that there is a gender gap, not just in IT, it's in other technical subjects and even construction and certain industries, but the fact that, we as an IT industry have an industry event such as SITS where we can use this event to champion and raise awareness about the fact that there aren't many women in the IT sector. I think that has to be applauded first and foremost. And it's only the first time we've done it, so we've got a lot to learn, and there's a lot much further that we can take the initiative. But I think really what's come out of the event in the last couple of days, and this week with the Women in IT blog that's been supporting the event, is that everybody's journey in IT is different, but there seems to be a theme that a lot of women in particular have found that they've just landed in IT without choosing to enter the field. And while that's great, and it's exciting that these ladies have decided to stay within IT, that kind of shows that IT is not big and scary, and you do come out alive. I think there's a message there, which is, why is there this theme or this trend that women tend to sort of end up in IT rather than consciously choosing it as a career? And me personally, I find that really intriguing because I chose IT as a career, and maybe I was naive at the time, but I went to an all-girls school, and they offered computer science as one of the subjects that you could study up until A-level. And so I just was good at the subject. I liked the problem-solving aspects of it. I liked the programming. And I think it wasn't until I left school and went to university that I walked into that lecture theatre for the first time to about 120 male faces, thinking, have I just ended up at like the male conference for something, or is this like a footballers convention, or am I in the right place? And then I suddenly realised that actually the career choice I've made is going to be one where, as a woman, I'm actually going to be in the minority.
Quite a disconcerting thing to actually walk into that kind of environment. I think we've all done it at some point, is, either as a technician going to a change meeting, or as a female manager walking into a boardroom to make some decisions. It's quite confronting, isn't it?
It is.
I mean, and I'm one of the ones who fell into IT by accident, and I was the first woman on the IT team, so I was in a very male-oriented, and it was in the age where IT was basically, and we were literally in the basement. So I'm in this basement area with 20 men, and I'm the only woman sitting there. It is disconcerting. You think, what did I actually let myself in for? And they felt uncomfortable too, because they sort of thought they couldn't carry on with the sort of jokes they had told before, and the type of conversations they'd had before. So it was interesting from both sides. There was a little bit of discomfort.
Yes.
So it's a funny industry to get into.
It is, and I think although there are other industries where the gender balance is not 50-50, I think IT is actually unique in its own way, because I think the IT industry is probably one of the only sectors where knowledge really kind of is key to your success. I mean, we're one of the very few industries that actually have a knowledge base as a function within IT and support. And if you don't know your stuff, it's very hard to be successful, no matter what area of IT that you work in. So, but I think, one of the key things that comes out of it is that, you haven't got to be extremely technically minded to work in IT. No. It's about identifying those softer skills, transferable skills, and really training IT managers to hire a talent pool of people rather than looking for people that have MCSEs or CCNAs, because that's training that can be done afterwards if the person's smart.
Yeah.
So you hire the person that has the interpersonal skills, the team building skills, the organisation, the problem solving, and then you have that sort of more broader challenge of embracing technology differently. So instead of having an IT department per se, you have to kind of recognise that technology is a function that sits within every single business department.
It does.
And it doesn't matter what department you're in, whether you're in finance or human resources or in the business itself, you have to own an element of technology to get your job done.
Yeah.
So I think it's that transition and changing the stereotype of geeky technical folks in the basement, which I've been there myself.
I mean, that is changing. It really is. Thank goodness.
Well, I mean, James, you're surrounded by women in your organisation
I mean, he's
in the
hired-
IT.
I mean, and he's one of these-
You're the token.
No, but he's hired some very
Yes,
successful
true.
women.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, TCS obviously is an Indian company. There are issues there about traditional Asian cultures. We actually now employ over 100,000 women in India. We actually have a women-only data centre.
Yeah.
Now, that might sound a bit strange to British ears, but as you all know from some of the recent press coverage, there are real issues about the safety of women in India. We take that, for instance, very, very seriously. So we're doing a lot in India to encourage women to step, and within TCS, female ladies, I don't know what right term I'm supposed to be using now, are well represented in the management layers. But something which intrigues me is I have a daughter who is a web developer. She does all sorts of technical things which I'm no longer up to date on. And what worries me, she actually seems slightly ashamed of it. And I'm not sure where that's come from.
Well, I think it's culturally that, as you're growing up as a child, as a teenager, doing anything that's like geeky or out of the ordinary is just deemed to be uncool. And there's a lot of stereotypes as you're growing up. Like, you hear that the geeky girl doesn't get the guy, or if you're too smart, you're going to intimidate the guys and they won't want to date you. And all these like negative perceptions about how you're not going to be successful in your life skills because of choosing a career choice such as technology, that can have a really sort of negative effect on the way that you view technology as you're growing up and choosing your career. So I think there's an element of that in there. And I think that, we have a lot of responsibility to re-educate young people as they're coming through the system to not only understand truly what technology is about, but also to rebrand the traditional job titles, I think, like programmer and desktop support and network person.
Well, we were talking earlier about, just bringing more people through the education systems and getting more realistic service management experience into the school level curriculums and things like that. And we were just talking about that earlier. I'm just wondering from that conversation too, how much of this cultural change in terms of the rebranding could we also add in conjunction with those other things?
And I think it's interesting as well. I just wonder if there's an element in here. We've talked about the geeky male stereotype. It's fair to say. I think a lot of males come into IT and they don't want a career. They want to come in, they want to carry on the equivalent of playing their console games, be left to themselves and not go anywhere. Do you think actually one of the issues with some attracting more women is there isn't a career path there? They don't think if I go in and start to build these technical skills, I can go on and become a manager, I can go on and see a future for myself in IT. But with IT, just you come in and you're there. Is that an issue?
I think so. I think that, it's very well known amongst even non-technical folks that the IT world is you either work in the call centre or the service desk. From there you go on to second line support where you're allowed to go to people's desks. That's
and
your freedom.
You might even get the code to the server room.
Exactly, if you're very lucky.
Yes.
And then if you're even luckier, you might even get promoted to third line support.
Yeah.
And then it's that or be a manager. Now, I'm sorry, but that's not the four options that's available in IT. And my own career actually mimics this misconception, because it wasn't until I came to SITS 12 years ago that I actually realised there was more to technology and IT beyond third line support or being a manager. And I was like, my eyes were just completely open, and I was just thinking, why is this not publicised?
Well, you might know that,
Right. And there's just so many other options available. You haven't got to be a geeky programmer or working on the technical side of things. There's so many other areas where you can apply your skill set. even if you're male, female, whatever. And I just think that is not publicised enough and not marketed.
What do you think about one of the things that we talked about in the panel was the rebranding, but changing the vocabulary that's being used, not just the job titles, but that it's not this Women in IT hashtag. I think is just that stepping stone, because we know that it's not the women on their own that can do this. We need the male support as well. There are other initiatives. But I think this term genderist, I'm really keen on that, because I think it then takes away this male-female, what we've had in our heads previously, this bias. And by saying, no, we're just talking about gender equality. Because I think on the other side of the coin, I have seen the males discounted sometimes in other roles as well. So what do you think about that vocabulary, how it can...
Yeah, I think it's a valid point. I think though it goes beyond gender, it goes beyond being a guy, being a girl. I think it's more about making a career choice because it's the right decision to make, and that comes through education. So even if it's a guy or if it's a girl, if they're saying they don't want to enter into a career in IT, their reason should be because it doesn't interest me, because I don't like to get into that nitty-gritty detail of technicalities. It shouldn't be, oh, well, you know, it's just a guy's world, or I don't want to be seen as a geek. Like, those are the wrong reasons, because that's not the reality. So I think it's more about the education and people making informed decisions for the right reasons.
Do you think, therefore, we should open this up to a general debate about diversity in IT? Because we are for an industry which is supposed to be about high tech and innovation, we seem to be one of the most deeply conservative industries out
we
there.
do.
And I mean, I'll give an example which always throws me. You go to a conference, there's a male speaker, they'll use a sporting-based analogy, as if football, cricket, golf are the only things out there. And to be honest, I find that quite excluding.
We have to be a little bit careful too. I know we've got all the legal things that come in place. You know, there now must be X percent of male, female on the boards, and this, that, and the other, which I think is great. It's a move forward. However, I think just in IT, how we get caught up in metrics we shouldn't be measuring. I think we have to be careful about saying, oh, it must be the statistic of the gender, as opposed to the diversity and the skill set.
Yes.
I
think we've got to be careful because, you know, positive discrimination, I think, is good in the short term just to readdress that imbalance of whatever it is you're trying to positively discriminate against. But I think the longer term, the root cause problem is what we really have to tackle. And that's going to be a shift in culture and change.
It's just because you meet that particular percentage on your in your environment doesn't mean that you've actually got the right mix of what you need for the business.
Yeah, it's almost like you're forcing the issue. Like, you know, I hear reports of all boards must be at least 50% female. Well, why don't they say all boards must be at least 50% male? Why target the female work?
It doesn't make sense, does it?
So automatically it's making people sort of subconsciously think that the females are on the back foot. So, which, you know, in a way that is kind of the problem we're trying to solve, but it goes way beyond just sort of looking at the metrics and trying to fix it short term.
They just should say boards should have a gender balance.
Yes.
That question about root cause, though, intrigues me, because if we look back to the service management industry, and I think I'm the oldest person here, so I can probably go back a long way. Late 90s, we actually saw an upsurge of a number of women coming to IT with service management as a career path, who were very much discovering their own capabilities and looked set to go on to do great things. And somehow they've disappeared from the landscape. Now, whether that's been accidental bias, I've certainly saw a lot of them actually end up being so successful they moved into the business because they were the first IT people who spoke to the business in business terms. But I'm just worried that if we do something to bring women in at the moment, it's got to be a sustained campaign.
And it's interesting you mentioned the late 90s because that was the time where I got into IT, and I remember there was a huge amount of publicity at that time when I was leaving school about the millennium and the millennium bug and what that could mean. So technology was really a hot topic in the press and everybody was kind of interested in it, and I think that raised the profile of IT, of technology, and the technology industry were recruiting as many people as they could to help with this problem that was going to happen with the year 2000. And so they were going out to women, to men, to schools, and I think that was a really good marketing campaign. And I think because it was specific to the millennium, that's why we didn't have that continuity afterwards, because it was kind of targeted just for that event.
So what's going to do that now? I mean, I can see how that was a reaction, a response to, quick, we've got to get this done, or we need to make sure we're ready to handle the chaos. Well, what do we have now within IT service management that, rather than bringing it in because of something negative, what have we got to generate that kind of interest again, that level of interest that was there?
I don't even think we necessarily need an event. I think just doing a better job of publicising what we do. And I think something really important is having positive role models. I mean, I don't know a single person, whether they work in technology or not, who doesn't know who Bill Gates is or Steve Jobs. You know, they know these guys, but you know, why don't they know who Cheryl Sanders is? Like, you know, I think female positive role models need to be out there more so. And I think maybe with Cheryl it is going to happen because she has actually posted a few articles yesterday following the untimely death of her husband, and that is such a sad story, but I think that's going to, maybe for the wrong reasons, get her more into the limelight.
People need them.
Yes, but I think, you know, we need to celebrate success, and we need to promote what it is that we do, but with the very careful emphasis on how we brand it. And we need to leverage the technology that toddlers are using. I mean, a toddler can use an iPad, so that toddler knows about IT before they can even speak.
They do.
So we need to just sort of leverage all of these things and turn it into positive marketing and send positive messages to young people as they get educated, to show them the options that are available to them and how exciting it can be, and just to break down those barriers.
Thank you so much for your time this afternoon. It's been
you're very welcome.
a pleasure talking to you, and hopefully the drive from this will carry on, and more and more people will pick up on it.
Definitely. Thank you so much, guys. Thanks.
Thank you.
Rosh.